Gangplank Galley, the third level of Donkey Kong Country 2, manages to combine elements of the previous two levels while introducing a few new features of its own, as well as calling back to the third level of DKC, Reptile Rumble, all while the sun sets on the first day of the Kong's adventure. This is part 3 of Overthinking Donkey Kong Country 2. In a way, this level does feel like a spiritual successor to Reptile Rumble. The first and most obvious connection is the focus on jumping enemies. Reptile Rumble had the blue critters, while Gangplank Galley has Kaboing. Kaboing is a grey clump with a second peg leg, and is essentially this game's blue critter. While there are no tires to bounce off here, there is an increased emphasis on verticality over Pirate Panic, and also the introduction of the hooks, suspended in midair for the Kongs to hang off of. The way the hooks are introduced is actually pretty smart. Ignoring the hooks above the start, which are used to get the DK coin, the first hook is by the K. It's just here, above 2 bananas, on its own. As usual, the bananas are used as unconscious visual cues for the player. The hook doesn't lead to anything, so it's simply there to teach the player what it is and how to interact with it. Right after though, there's a run of 3 ascending hooks above a platform, ending with a DK barrel. So after introducing the player to the concept of the hook, the level now shows them their potential. The hooks can be used to reach otherwise unreachable places and items. The hooks in the first half of the level are all above solid ground, giving the player a chance to get comfortable with them before putting their skills to the test in the second half. After the star barrel, there's a run of gaps that the player will have to traverse via the hooks. First has 1 hook, second has 2, and the final pit has 3. And that's really the closest thing this level has to a focal point. Getting the players comfortable with the hooks and the added verticality that DKC2 provides, as well as just ramping up the difficulty a little more. Gangplank Galley also introduces us to the invincibility barrel and the treasure chest, both of which are fairly self-explanatory. The last new addition Gangplank Galley provides is Cruncher. Cruncher is this game's Crusher equivalent, and arguably the strongest common enemy in the game. The game throws a bunch of them at you here, but most of them are after the invincibility barrel, so you can cathartically walk right through them. In fact, the level itself has a noticeably higher number of Kremlings than either preceding levels. You could make the case that this is the heart of the ship, and we're traversing the most commonly used area. You could also make the case that the Kremlings have gotten wind of the Kongs on board and are ramping up security. This doesn't really belong here, but I don't know where else to put it. One detail I forgot to mention in the first video is how the Kremlings fall overboard and land in the sea with a splash when you beat them here. It's a small detail, but it's really cool. DKC2 doesn't emphasize the environment and weather effects as overtly as the first game, but they're still here, and they're still impressive. It's just usually a bit more subtle. Take Pirate Panic, or any ship level for example. The gorgeous parallax scrolling of the sea and sky in the background is such a beautiful detail. And in Mainbrace Mayhem, the clouds in the background move at a different pace than the wind in the foreground, which does a lot to sell the atmosphere. And one of my favorite background details is in the water levels, which we'll talk about in the next video. But possibly the best environmental effect in the entire game can be found here. As you traverse the level, the sun slowly and evenly sets behind the horizon. The blues give way to purple, orange, and green. But unlike the sunset in Jungle Hijinks, there's an unsettling, unnatural feel to it all that really drives home the tonal shift from DKC to DKC2. The focus of the level is very likely the hooks, but for me, the sunset is the most memorable part. Episode 3 is in the can. So far, it feels like DKC2 has less emphasis on environmental storytelling and more on showcasing new mechanics. I'm not knocking it. It's a great way to kick off your sequel, front-loading it with a lot of exciting changes and additions. Despite its relative lightness, this level is the first one that really sticks out to me as having that DKC2 darkness, a hint of what's to come. Episode 4 comes out real soon, so stay tuned. Thanks for watching.